There's a pep in my step this morning. Got up, got a run in, got the kiddo to school, and we headed over to the Ponderosa to check out LSU football practice. I know that y'all have heard me over the years talk about how it's not the most interesting thing in the world to go check out, and I would stand by that take relative to what I think most diehard LSU fans would feel about it. Like, I don't get a ton out of watching wide receivers run through cones and catch passes from a grad assistant 5 yards away from him. I don't get a ton out of watching offensive linemen go through walkthroughs on which linebackers to hit. That's not the most fun thing in the world, even though I think a lot of people think going to an LSU football practice would be a really, really cool thing. But that said, I do like the first day. I like the first day. You're getting to look at some guys for the first time. You're getting to look at guys you haven't seen since April, getting to look at who's out there first, running through rotations, and it's just a signal that the quote-unquote dead of summer is moving beyond us, and we're getting closer to some real, actual live football, and we saw a good bit of practice today. So let's kind of go into the things that I saw first and foremost. Let's start with injury stuff, okay? Because that's very evident. That's not a guess. That's not something that you're making an overreaction on. Just in terms of the guys that were there, the guys that were not, and what the guys that have come off an injury were looking like. So we'll start there. Harold Perkins, pretty big name dude, linebacker. First team, running through every drill, full speed, no brace, no nothing. He's ready to rock. Whit Weeks, broken leg in the bowl game, full speed, first team, middle linebacker, no significant brace of any sort. He's full speed and ready to go. So those two guys in the middle of your defense that you lost due to injury last year, once in September with Harold Perkins in the ACL, once in the bowl game with Whit Weeks getting rolled up on, those guys are ready to rock and roll. Jacobian Guillory was at practice, had the helmet on, going through some individual stuff, did not participate in the team drills. This is not completely shocking. Jacobian Guillory is a sixth-year senior. He doesn't have to go through the first day of fall camp for the sixth time. They're bringing him back slowly from an Achilles injury. That's a big man. Jacobian Guillory, let me make sure I got my numbers right here. Yeah, 6'2", 318 pounds. That's a guy who they're going to bring along fairly slowly. Now, I'll tell you this. When they wrapped up spring in April, Jacobian Guillory was in pads at practice. Now, he wasn't popping pads, but he was in pads at practice going through some off-to-the-side work with his position coaches. So I don't feel like Jacobian Guillory is a long way away from being full speed. He might be ready to go full speed right this very minute. But that's a significant injury to a big man, and I think LSU is going to take their time with him this early. It is July as of today. Now, LSU does play in August this year, which is rare, but it is July. So I think that that's not necessarily a huge cause for concern with him, but it's something we'll monitor as we continue to go out there. Nick Anderson comes in from Oklahoma. I have hyped Nick Anderson up a ton. I talked about him in my wide receiver breakdown. I wrote about it at LouisianaSports.net. I picked him to lead LSU in receiving, just as kind of looking across the board and looking at his potential and what LSU has at that group. And I've got high hopes for Nick Anderson. And I had high hopes for Nick Anderson when he came over in the spring. And I remember having Brandon Drum on my show. He covers Oklahoma. And he said that, I said, well, tell me about Nick Anderson. He's a freak. And then we started talking about the injury. He's like, well, we never really found out about it. He's talking about the media. Like, it was a hip, and then it was an oblique, and then maybe it was a hamstring, and it was just something in the middle of his body, and it just he never came back. He played in one game and was never to be seen again in Norman. So we watch him in the spring, and Nick Anderson is there, and he's going through the cone drills and running those, and you see his size, his physicality, you know what production he had at Oklahoma, but just not ready to participate in the 11-on-11 and 7-on-7. And that's April. That's back 3.5 months ago. So I told y'all on Monday of this week, like, the first thing I'm going to do when we go in to practice is find him and see what's up. And I found him. And he had his helmet on and his jersey on, and he was not in no contact, had a sleeve on his leg, and it went all the way from the pants, which stop above the knee, down to his ankle. Black sleeve all the way down. And he was going through the cone drills, what looked to me to be 100%. But they sent the first team out there, and he wasn't with them. And they sent the second team out there, and he wasn't with them. And he didn't do in the 5-on-7, didn't do 7-on-7, didn't do 11-on-11. And when they went outside and did the 11-on-11, he was standing off to the side holding his receiver gloves. That, to me, doesn't look like a guy that's anticipating he's going to go in that drill. So I'm not a doctor. I don't know what exactly is going on with Nick Anderson. It could be a Jacobian Guillory type deal. Remember, last year in fall camp, Zy Alexander was just kind of held out precautionally because he tore his ACL. They're giving him some time, and he didn't start the first game, but he played a little bit. By the time they got to Ole Miss, he was out there. And again, I don't know what the timeline is for Nick Anderson because I don't really know what the injury is.
There is, I think Brian Kelly talked about it.
Well, do you have the sound?
Yeah, actually, let me get it real quick.
That'd be good. Again, I blasted from practice, wrote the practice report, and here I'm here. So if you've got an update on that,
I got
I'm all about it. Let's go.
Yeah, we kept him out of contact today. He had gone through our concussion protocol. He got into a little fender bender, and so we wanted to make sure. So he's cleared our concussion protocol. So today was his day of non-contact. He'll be able to get into 11-on-11, 7-on-7 tomorrow.
That makes a lot of sense because, again, I tell you, he's running through the cone drills and looks good. And then he's not going through the 7-on-7 and 11-on-11. So that's good news. Again, I think Nick Anderson is a supremely talented guy, and he is a uniquely gifted player in this receiving corps because they don't have anybody else that's 6'3", with that kind of speed and body control and that kind of home run hitting ability. Like Kylan Billiot's 6'3", but I don't know what level of receiver he is. He certainly didn't set LSU's freshman record for touchdown catches like Anderson set Oklahoma's freshman record for touchdown catches. And Chris Hilton and Varian Brown can run for days, but they're not 6'3". And Aaron Anderson has been massively productive. He's LSU's leading receiver last year, but he's not 6'3" either. So this is a guy that I'm hoping for a big year out of. Good to know, nothing significant with the lower extremity injury, which he is still wearing something for, I think. But concussion protocol for the car accident that we know happened right before SEC Media Days. So good to know on that front. And then you've got the last bit of injury news that we found out today, and it's disappointing, but I don't think massively upsetting as far as this roster goes right now. Solomon Thomas, 5-star offensive lineman that we've talked about a lot. He came in the spring. He was a top 5 consensus offensive lineman by every service, and was a guy that you're looking at 4 open offensive line spots. He could potentially push for 1. I would put that on hold in a big way because Solomon Thomas has a broken toe in his foot, metatarsal is what Brian Kelly told Matt Moscona earlier today. He was not at practice today as far as being dressed out, and he's going to miss a month. So you're talking about missing all of camp, really all the way to the Clemson game. To me, that's almost an impossible hill to reclimb once you're ready to go. Like if you have an extended period of time in camp and then get a little injury there at the end and have to miss the first couple of weeks of the season, maybe you could ease back in. Dominic McKinley did that last year. But if you miss all of camp and you miss all of the development stuff and all of the install stuff and all of the scrimmages and all of those reps that go with the first team, second team, third team, all that time where everybody else is working, and then you show up, you're like, hey, I'm ready to go, and you got to get ready to play Clemson and then Florida 2 weeks later, like, we don't have time to integrate you into things at that point. Like, not someone, I can integrate a third-year receiver in pretty quickly. A first-year offensive lineman, that's going to be an issue. So, Solomon Thomas, I think his playing time in 2025 is really, really doubtful if you miss all of August. That's just the nature of this beast. One guy that had this happen early on in camp, and this is just off the top of my head, there are probably a lot that have happened over the course of the last 20 years, but Jarvis Landry got hurt in fall camp. And I think he's the guy they would have liked to get in on that 2011 team. Odell was really the second receiver on that team. Ruben Randall was far and away the first receiver, but Jarvis missed all of camp and then couldn't really break his way in on that awesome team. And then he came back as a sophomore as a superstar. I'm not here to tell you what Solomon Thomas's 3, 4, 5 years at LSU are going to look like. I'm telling you that year one is massively compromised if you miss all of August. And that's the case right now with him. So that's your look at the injury side of this thing. It's a team outside of Thomas that is healthy and ready to go. They're going to ease back some of these veterans, it appears. But mainly, this is a healthy football team ready to get going in fall camp. So that's the first part of the most important portion of this practice report. Now we get into what I saw on the field. I've got first and second teams on offense and defense. I've got a standout on offense today. I got a standout on defense of the day. Let's talk about that when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.